Uh, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that introduction. Obviously, I can't see any of you, and as fellow coaches, you understand it's so much easier when you're talking to a crowd that can see you and interact with you, and you can gauge. Feel free to put your video on if you want. If you don't want to, don't stress about it. I was talking to my dad about I minister weddings. I coach for 22 years. I teach. And I'm nervous about giving a webinar because I'm not hearing and feeling the crowd. And my dad said, well, if you just believe they're listening to you and care, then you'll be just fine. So it made me laugh and relax a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And hopefully this will come out for you. And if you can't see something, please go ahead and type in or pop off the mute and let Saxon know, and we'll kind of solve some problems. But as Saxon said, I want to talk a little bit about leadership and captains. I've been coaching for 22 years, and I feel like the last 12, I've really spent a lot more time researching leadership and captains, and like all of you, it's I think a stress every year to try to figure out, how am I going to deal with leadership on my team? Do my players understand leadership? Are they doing the things that I want them to do? Are they doing the things they want to do? Are they trying to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish? All of those little things are important. And so for me, I have found that a lot of my players are not prepared to do the leading that I would like them to do. They don't know what leadership really means. When I say be a leader, and I find myself saying that, I have to take a step back and go, okay, am I teaching them what that means? And so I've done research for the last couple of years, and I've looked at a number of different ways to approach leadership. And I keep coming to one thing, which is that I feel like the kids are the same. I don't feel like the kids are too much different than what I was when I was a kid. But I think the environment they're growing up in is different. For me, I think the environment they're growing up in and the parenting that they're receiving, the pay to play for club sports, the opportunity to switch schools, change club teams, avoid issues, and leave environments where they maybe don't get as much praise as they would like, or they don't win an award, or they don't make a team. For me, they switch their coaches, they switch their clubs, they switch their schools, they switch teachers. They'll find any place that gives them any kind of praise or success or positivity, and they kind of avoid struggle and difficulty. And so I don't know if you're seeing that more and more, but I am out of the kids that I'm coaching and teaching. And so how do you address that? How do you create an environment and a culture where players thrive in an environment where there's some struggle, where there's some failure? I mean, our seasons are not going to be perfect seasons every year. Most of the time, we're going to struggle. We're going to fail. We're going to lose games. We're going to run into issues. And how do we fight our way through that with perseverance and with growth, and not just avoid the issue? So I decided to take a different approach to leadership. I decided to create a leadership team and focus on the team success first, having the right attitude, developing self-sacrifice mentality, appreciation for the opportunity. We're just so fortunate. I try to explain that to them all the time. We host a tournament every year where we raise money for somebody in the community that has cancer, and we hand them a check. We average about $3,000 a year. We've raised around $50,000 over the last 14 years, and we hand somebody, a person in the community a check. And in that moment, a lot of times they start to appreciate that could be me, that could be my dad, that could be my mom. And so appreciation for the opportunity to play And then willingness to acknowledge my place in the team, in the pecking order. And we have players that we want them to desire being a starter, but we also want them to understand that maybe they're not. Maybe they're not a starter. Maybe they're not going to get as many minutes as other players. So I need them to accept that role, but I want them to be motivated to try to attain a higher role on the team and stay positive about that role. And that's a tough balance. And I coach high school girls. I did coach high school boys for 17 years as well. And then I've coached various clubs. And I mentor some coaches that are coaching club, and I mentor a coach who coaches a men's UPSL team who also implemented this process. And you're going to get to hear a testimony from him at the end who implemented this. So these are the reasons why that I went this direction. So how did I go about putting in this leadership team idea, right? So after a lot of try 2 captains, 1 captain, I pick the captains, they pick the captains, let's go with no captains. I didn't find anything that fit my program until I started this process. I wanted something player driven, right? If the players want it, they're going to go after it a whole lot more. It's going to make my job a lot easier. I wanted the players to choose, but I wanted them to choose with some thought process involved. You worry about if I allow the players to choose, is it going to be popularity? Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, the people I like are the people that I'm going to want to lead me, but I'm probably going to have things in common with them, and they're going to kind of represent me and what I'm interested in. So I wanted the representation to come from the team. Well, you go, well, I've done that before and I've had them select captains. We didn't do captains. Now, we named captains on game days out of the leadership team to speak to the official, but we had a leadership team, and the leadership team was large. I had 16 girls on my roster, and we had 6 girls last year on the leadership team. For me, I've kind of, gone to a place where am I going to be 6 every year? I don't know. But I feel like what was nice about having so many is it brought balance to the group. And it helped with problem solving. It helped with self-sacrifice and compassion. All these things kind of came out. And I want to show you how we did this process. Okay. So, and by the way, if you need to stop me at any time or, you have a question for me, just go ahead and type the thoughts or unmute and say, Coach Dragoon, can I interrupt and ask me a question? I'm happy to engage. So this is a form that I had my players fill out. Now, yes, you can do Google Forms. I understand that. They can fill all that stuff out. I like the fact that they got to sit there with a pencil and a paper and write down how they feel about, what are their goals individually? What are their goals for the team for the season? And then the second part is the leadership part, where they filled out what are the 4 most important qualities they wanted in a captain, what were the 4 specific expectations they had of a captain, and then who were the best choices. And you'll notice that I said they could list any and all that they thought applied, including themselves. So instead of saying we're going to pick 6 or we're going to pick 5 or it's going to be 7, I said put as many as you want, each individual person. What that allowed me to do was collect feedback from all of my returning players. Before we did this in a September meeting of last year, and we did it again this past year, September. We don't play in North Carolina, we don't play our high school girls season until the springtime. So they have a lot of time to develop their leadership skills and to lead outside of the season before they lead inside of the season, which is a huge asset to me. And I would highly encourage you to do this process, a whole season ahead, because you can grow the leadership prior to your season. But also, it kind of took the pressure off of who was going to flip a coin or yell during a match. Leadership is significantly more than that. And so I wanted them to have that opportunity to, write this stuff out, and then let me as a coach kind of assess what they wrote. Okay. So what I did is, I selected the group based on the number of votes. And we had, last year we had three players with 10 or more nominations. And then we had 3 players with 3 or 4 nominations. And then we had like a player with 1 nomination. So we cut it at 6 because it was pretty obvious cut for us. You may find difficulty in that. This past year, I had this past fall when we redid our leadership for this coming spring, we had 3 run away with 10 plus, I think 14 nominations and 13 nominations each out of 16. But then we also had 7 kids get like 1 or 2 nominations. So we didn't feel like we had a clear-cut second group of 2 or 3 individuals, and we didn't want 3 on the leadership team. So I put those 7 back up in a Google form, and I said, look, vote for 2 or 3 that you think represent you as a leader, and that kind of narrowed it down, and we ended up picking 2 of those players. And I want to talk a little bit about that because one of them withdrew themselves after they sat down. So after we go through some more, I'll talk about how they kind of weed themselves out. So once the team is selected, I'm kind of going a little more off of last year as well. Like last year's experience, we took all 6. We said, all right, let's reflect on what the teammates want, what they expect, what the coaches want, and determine what we need to do as a leadership team. Okay, so here is a list of all of the characteristics that were listed by my players. Okay, so confidence came up 3 times. Truthful and honest came up twice. The star is an additional vote for that particular quality or characteristic. Okay, and so notice these aren't expectations. These aren't actionable things. These are just the qualities that they wanted a leader to have. And as you go through those things, can you really say that both of your captains or all 3 of your captains or your 1 captain or you as a coach have all of these things, or even all of the yellow and blue and green things? Like, you want to, we all strive to, but we're all, obviously some qualities are our strengths and some are less of a strength, right? And then some might even be a weakness. And so we kind of organize these, right? And we focused in on which of these are the most important to the team. And do we have that represented within the 6 players that were chosen? And the 6 players had to do an honest self-check. Like, do I have these qualities? And if I don't, can I acquire them? Am I willing to learn them? Do I want to try to acquire these qualities? Then we went through expectations. And as we went through the expectations, it was pretty amazing. Like the variety of expectations. Some of them kind of overlap, but you'll notice like share teams' expectations for the season, believe in themselves and the team always. Like, that's a tough one, right? Sometimes we have doubt in ourselves. Sometimes we doubt the team's ability to succeed. But that was important, to at least a player on the team. So as they read through these, they focused in obviously on the ones that were the most written. And they had to decide, of these, which ones can we promise to the team that we are gonna adhere to? We're gonna hold ourselves accountable to. Like, are we gonna make sure that we show up to all trainings and all things early? Are we gonna make sure we commit to taking the warm-up seriously? Are we gonna make sure that we can yell encouraging and directional stuff on the field? Like, are we gonna communicate really well with the coaches and the team? So I think that helps the players, again, the leadership, reflect, can I do these things, right? Am I going to be able to commit to this? And then they went through the team goals. And these were the goals that the players put down that they wanted our team to have. And so this is eye-opening for a coach, in my opinion, because as a coach, like, I know what my team goal is. I want to win a state championship. I want to win a conference championship. But do my players want that? And while I ask them that, my hope is that, yes, those are the things they want to do, but how I coach them has to change based on what they want to accomplish. I can't spend all year trying to win a state title if they don't care at all about that. If they don't want to stay after and lift weights because they really don't care about that and they're not going to put any effort into it, why would I put myself and them through the stress of that? So this can be a very challenging thing for a coach because I'm not laying out the goals and objectives of the team now. The team is laying them out, and then the leadership is deciding which ones matter. So our leadership had to go through these and go, which ones are we going to take and say, yes, these are the team goals. We are committing to them, and we will do what it takes to accomplish them. And some of the goals are kind of, vary. Like you'll see, have no drama. That was a goal of one player. It wasn't a goal of 16 players, but it probably should be, right? That's hard to do. You'll notice that for my team, like beating Lake Norman Charter, that was a huge goal, which, by the way, that was the only goal on this list we did not accomplish outside of going to a state championship because they were the 3-time defending state finalists, 1-time defending state champs, and they came back and beat us with 8 minutes to go. We were up 2-0. They had lost one game in the last 3 years, 2 games in the last 3 years, one as a state final and one to a 4A powerhouse. And we were ahead with 8 minutes to go, and they came back and beat us. Scored 3 goals, 2 goals in the last 8 minutes to tie it and beat us in overtime. And that was a goal we wanted to accomplish, and we lost to them in the state quarterfinals. But it was there on the list because they wanted it there. And I think that helps. And you notice there's a variety of goals. Like going to a state championship is very different from move the ball fast, improve our technical ability, communicate well on the field. So some of those things are very measurable and during the season, and some are more result driven, and we either will or won't accomplish them. And so I think that's a good variety of goals for them to have. I also made them sit through expectations of our staff. So if they wanted to stay as one of the 6 leaders, they had to have our staff's expectations in there. And this is what me and my staff came up with as our expectations. And these were non-negotiable. And if they couldn't live up to these things, then we didn't want them to serve on leadership. We wanted them to recuse themselves. We didn't select leadership, but we wanted them to commit to these things. You'll notice that I focused on sacrifice first, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But for me, I think I want to move towards growing leaders that are putting everything before them, servant leadership. I like you probably read a lot. I read a lot and watch a lot of webinars and videos and talk to other coaches. And, it all really comes back to leadership for me is, am I willing to do the things for the rest of my teammates, not for myself? And that's really hard. The All Blacks are a great story. I'm sure you've read the articles about them out of New Zealand. And, they have the phrase, be the guy who's sweeping, right? You want to be the guy who stays at the end of every game and sweeps out the locker room, because that means you've got the highest level of respect of all your teammates, right? So the guy who stays the longest and does the lowest level job is the one with the most respect of their teammates. And so we spend a lot of time on teaching them that this is not a reward. Being on the leadership team is the furthest thing from a reward. It's almost a punishment. It's painful. It's not, it's not easy. The leadership group doesn't get to be the first ones to leave the practice or the game. They don't get to leave the bus first. They have to stay and clean it. They have to get the equipment out. They have to put the equipment back. They don't get to assign other people to do that job. And so we expect them to be servant leaders first. And we teach that. And for us, that's a type and style of leadership, and it's part of the definition of leadership. And so education of the role that they're taking on is a big part of our leadership team. And this is the start of that education, is when they have to commit to all the expectations of our coaching staff. Build what you want to live in. We want them to think about that all the time. Like, how do you feel about how things are going? Like, would you feel good about how you were treated by the staff or by the leadership? Would you feel good if that's how you were treated? Do you feel good about our travel, our food, our, all the things that make up our season, our team bonding? Like, what they decide on is what we build. And so they have to understand that I'm going to give them all this power, right, to make all kinds of decisions all year long. pretty much all the decisions go to them outside of who starts and who plays. And then also even in training, like how the training session is designed. However, they get some influence on that too, because they get a chance to give feedback all the time on how things are being run. And so we tell them that they're a huge part of everything that they feel. If they feel good about how things are going, it's because they've created the environment they want to be in that way. And if they're not happy, well, they built that environment, so they have to change what they're building.
Can I interrupt? We just got a question in the chat.
Go right ahead.
Yes. So Coach asked, do the players develop the list of characteristics of leaders, or do you provide a list?
What I want to do is, let me address that one first. And I saw another good one. I'm going to scroll back. These expectations of captains and then these characteristics of leadership are all what was written by the players on this form. So I don't develop any of those. All of that list that you see, all the highlights, the blue and yellow highlights, come from this form. They get a chance to write all these qualities down and all these expectations down and vote on the leadership team. And then once we bring the leadership team in, we make them reflect on all the stuff their teammates said by showing them this list. And then we show them this list. And then we show them this list. And they go through this list, which was created by their teammates. And I'm going to pop by this one, this is what I share with them from a coach perspective. And then this is what they came up with. So once they've read over all that stuff that I just showed you, they create this. And you'll notice at the top, I've got like let me X that out real quick. So it says leadership, accountability, and team goals. They wrote this. As leaders of East Lincoln Women's Soccer Team 21-22, we will aspire to maintain these characteristics and qualities. And then they picked from that list the ones they believe were the most important to their teammates. And then they did the same thing here for their expectations. These were the expectations they felt they could adhere to, that their teammates had selected as they wanted them to adhere to. And then here were the goals that they picked. These were the goals that all of the players listed all the goals they wanted. And from that list of goals, right, that was highlighted blue and yellow, they picked the ones that were highlighted the most, that they felt they, as a leadership team, wanted to commit to trying to attain as they represent their teammates. And so they created this. And then I can already read another question. It says, how often are you explicitly meeting with the leadership team? Well, I'm actually going to get to that, but when I get into how I interact with them, but it's at least once every other week. And I want to talk about that in just a minute. So if you'll hold that question, I promise I'm going to address it in just a minute. But does this address the question of how do I get the list and how do they manage the list? Are we good there? Does that help? What do you think? I can't remember. I think
we're all set. Yeah.
We're all set with that. Is that good? Cool. All right. So, all right, regular meetings. Here you go. So the question was, when do we meet? Yes, we need to meet. If you're going to do this, you're going to need to meet. You're going to need to meet often. And you'll see that I've broken the slides up into 3 parts, like why do I do it? How do we do it? And then what were the positives and negatives? And those are going to be a little bit later, like what were the outcomes positive? What were the outcomes negative? Right? One of the positive outcomes is I get to know my leadership a lot better. One of the negatives is, as a coach, you got to be committed. If you want to do this, then you need to make time for your leadership team. And in the testimonial that I'll play a little bit later, in a couple minutes, that was one of the things that he neglected with his UPSL team. He didn't meet enough with his leadership team. You need to meet with them. I do a breakfast. We do a breakfast club. So we meet at 7:20 in the morning, probably once every other week. Sometimes it's every week. Sometimes it's 3 weeks in between. We try to balance it. I try to talk to them and their schedule, but we meet before school starts. They come in, I buy breakfast. That's my money out of my pocket. But that shows my commitment to them. And then we go through, either we're doing an educational piece, right? So like we're watching a video on leadership, on how the SEALs do leadership, how the All Blacks do leadership, how other colleges do leadership, or we're talking about stuff that has to happen. Like, and I'll get to those examples actually right down here. here are the examples of what we went through, right? Last year in those leadership team meetings, like they developed a Christmas party with a white elephant and cookie exchange, and that happened just before Christmas. They organized the team to play indoors. It's an indoor-outdoor facility locally. They built the team, they collected the money, they paid for the league spot, they coached themselves, and they won the league. I didn't go to a single game. They create open fields. They build a training session. They run it by me for tweaks if they think they need them or they don't. I go down there and I sit so that there's an adult supervising the session. That's a rule for the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, and they run the session. They run a training session. They built secret buddies where they put everybody's name in a hat and they draw out a name, and they would spend 2 weeks where they would slip notes from one teammate to another to get to their secret buddy without their secret buddy knowing, or give them gifts like a Mountain Dew or a bag of M&Ms. And they actually created a Google form where you could list all the things that you really liked in terms of snacks or treats or candies or whatever. And they would do that for each other for 2 weeks and then reveal their secret buddy and then draw new secret buddies. That was an idea that developed from our leadership team and that we talked about in those meetings, and they created, they built from the meeting, and then they implemented from the meetings. This year, our leadership team is going to do almost all those things, but they've added a Friendsgiving. They created a Friendsgiving. They're doing it next week, Monday, on a Monday night. Some of them are sacrificing club training, and they're going to all pitch in and eat together. I didn't have the idea. They had the idea. I did not organize the idea. They organized it. They communicated. They each took a job in terms of creating a Google form to figure out who was going to bring what, and invite everybody and manage the schedule and find a parent who would host. All of those things were player driven. They also made a collective decision in the offseason that weight training was needed. Okay, and this is pretty amazing. We lost in the state quarterfinals, and a group of 16 girls returning said, hey, the only time we can lift is 5:45 in the morning. Will you get up in the morning, come open the weight room and run a training session for us 3 times a week? I said, sure. And we average 16 players a day. Now, our program is 40 girls, including JV girls. So 13 of those are freshmen. They can't come. They don't have rides. They're kind of new to the program. So out of the returning 27 players, we were getting 16 players a day at 5:45 in the morning to lift weights in high school. It's not so much the weight training. It's the fact that they sat down as a leadership group and said, how do we improve upon last year? And I said, I don't know, what do you guys think? And they said, we want to lift. I didn't suggest it. I had no idea that they wanted that. And what's awesome is I can drive that no problem. Every coach would love to hear their players do that. And it's even better when you don't have the idea and you don't have to force the idea. We're down to about 9 a day. And that's because basketball started up and I have a lot of players that play basketball, but we're going to move to the afternoons because they decided they wanted to do that post Thanksgiving and start including the freshmen as we move closer to the season. And again, that came out of the meetings. Positive outcomes, right? Here are the positive outcomes, right? Balance. Instead of 2 leaders who can't communicate or can't problem solve or can do those but don't self-sacrifice or aren't very compassionate. They're really good yellers on the field. Now I have 6, right? So 6 of those players, when I say 40 in the program, by the way, I have a JV and a varsity, right? And so my JV does their own thing, and I focus my leadership on my varsity and their team. So I'm kind of answering that question coming from Brian there. So we did it that way. And I also want to talk about the 16. We did the 16 returning varsity players pick the leadership for the varsity team. So when I say 40 players, we have a JV program and we pick their leadership in their season because we really don't know who's going to make our JV team until we get that time. But our returning varsity players get to create the leadership for the next year. And anyone who gets added to the varsity team, they get to be a part of the varsity team, but they were not part of the selection process for leadership. But they also didn't serve on our team yet. So they haven't been a part of that program. We're kind of phasing them in. So they have less say in who the leadership should be and how that should go because they don't have experience with any of the other teammates. So I don't know if that kind of answers that question, but I kind of digressed. But I'll come back to it if I didn't, Brian. Just let me know if I need to talk more about that. Reduce pressure on the field. That is huge. Reduce pressure on the field is big time. When you have two captains, if they're not playing well, if they're having a bad day, if they miss a PK, it's devastation, right? If you have 6, you don't have to worry about that. There's going to be a couple of girls who can pick those 3 or 2 that are having a bad day up, but more importantly, take over the leadership in that moment. Also, if I'm trying to be the best player I can be, and I'm trying to be something for everyone else on the team, I'm staying late, I'm sweeping floors, I'm dealing with all my teammates that have issues on and off. They've got a boyfriend issue. They're coming to talk to me. They need tutoring. They're coming to talk to me. They're struggling with coaches' playing time. They're coming to talk to me. If there are 6 players dealing with that, they can divide and conquer significantly more efficiently. And it's way more likely that everyone on the team feels like there's somebody in that leadership group that represents them, that they can go to, that they can talk to. So it removes pressure both in terms of play on the field and in terms of performance, but also having to have a good day every day or having to deal with every issue that comes along. It removes that pressure. And it brings balance to discussions, right? A lot of the problems that you address with your team are done by your leadership in the meetings. So they come to me in a meeting, and let's say I had 2 captains and they can't agree on how to solve a problem. When you have 6, you're way less likely to be 3-3. You're way more likely to be 4-2 or 5-1. And that helps because you get to a place where a person who maybe has a very outside view that you don't agree with has 4 teammates going, hey, maybe we need to look at this differently. And it's easier to convince them that they need to look at things through a different lens than when it's 2 versus 1 and you end up with issues even among your leadership. And the fact that they split things up, I have 2 really good communicators, and I've got 2 horrific communicators right now. And when I say I had 6 last year, right now we have 4. We selected 5, and one of the girls looked at the leadership, looked at the list of stuff from this year, and said, I can't commit to those things right now. I'm not in a place where I feel like I can do that. I love our team and I want to play, but I don't know that I can handle all of that. And they took themselves out, and it was pretty amazing. But that left us with 4. So we have to rethink how we divide up all of the roles among those 4 players. One thing I can tell you is all 4 of them are not good communicators. All 4 of them are not good problem solvers, but at least one of them is. And so I now have what I want in 1 or 2 people in 5 or 6. And that's okay because I still get all of my leadership done. So these were all the positives in terms of, for me. Collaboration, so much better. Players that didn't have certain skill sets, my leadership that didn't have a particular leadership skill, they improved on it. Like this year, somebody who wasn't a good communicator last year has taken over communication this year because they saw how important it was that they learned that. And so they took that role over. They do the group texting, the group Instagram, or I don't even know. I don't have any social media, so I'm going to be honest with you. They handle all of that. But they've taken over that stuff. And again, I've talked about reduces drama and discontent. Like I can have 3 leadership come to me and go, hey, there was an issue, but the 6 of us talked about it. We've met with the player. 2 of us met with the player, talked to him, and we were able to deal with it. They also know each other really, really well. And they know each other probably better than I know them, even though I know them pretty well. I think what's really good about that is they know in discussions, they were able to say, hey, I can't talk to her because I'm going to be tough on her. We need somebody who can get down to her level, talk to her, and deal with her issue. And so another leadership player goes, hey, I'm more compassionate, I'm more comfortable. Let me talk to her from a different perspective. And so they actually use their talents to help solve problems. And we really had 0 drama, 0 discontent for most of the season. Obviously, if somebody's not playing a lot, there's a little bit of discontent, but they dealt with that really, really well. Camaraderie increases, team bonding increases. Those were all things that were really good. Negatives. It takes a lot of prep work. Guys, I'm not going to lie. I work on this all the time. Like I'm meeting with my leadership once a week or once every other week. I've got to organize that leadership meeting. I've got to set an agenda for that leadership meeting, which is good. I also have to deal with everything they want. I have to accept that if the leadership says, look, The team goals are not a state championship. We do not want to lift after training. We do not want to do Saturday practices. Then guess what? Me yelling and doing those, that's only going to make things worse. I may not like that, but now I at least know where they're at. Now, if I want to change that, that's a whole different job for me as a coach. I need to find a way to motivate my players to do these things that maybe they don't see as important goals for them, but I see as important goals for our program. But now my job is different. I'm not trying to attain goals that they don't want to attain. I'm trying to motivate them to set higher goals or higher standards. And that's a different process for me. And so instead of me being frustrated with their lack of commitment to things I think they should be committed to, I know they don't want to be committed to those things. I'm not going to stress about them, but I'm going to reinvent a process to get them where I want them to be. And so I change my mentality from frustration to like, okay, I need to be positive and I need to try to find a way to drive them that way. But I also have to accept that they're driving the ship. Like I'm guiding them, but they're driving the ship. Now, when they're driving it in the same direction that I want to go, it's amazing. It's championship. It's, exactly what I've been looking for. They want to win a state championship. They're driving towards it. I'm just guiding them. When they're like, hey, we just want to win a couple games. We all want to get together and have some fun. And we really don't want to work that hard. That's no fun. But it also tells me I need to change the mentality of my program, not beat them into submission. I need to go a different direction. And I don't need to spend my whole season frustrated, wondering why they don't want to do the things I want to do when they really never wanted to do those things. And so I think that's a tough thing for a coach. You have to accept it and look at yourself, because if they don't want the same goals you want, you need to change. You need to adjust to them, and then you need to find a way to motivate them to go after those things that you believe the program should be going after. And so that's a tough self-assessment and also means more work for you. Coach and leadership, like too many chiefs. If you've got 6 leaders, that can be a little bit of an issue, right? Like what if they don't agree? Well, you have to set parameters and you need to educate them. So during the off season, when we met all the time, we talked a lot about that, about how no matter what happens at training, no matter what happens, if they don't agree with something that's happening, they do not verbalize that in front of the rest of the team. They wait and they talk to each other after the training session. Quick minute and a half after every training session, they got together as a group of 6 and said, hey, training was great today. Everything's good. Or, hey, listen, I didn't appreciate the way you talked to me, or I didn't appreciate the way you dealt with that issue. And then they hash it out. And it's not always perfect, but it's way better that way. And we had that conversation. You have to monitor that. You're going to have to manage that. But normally, like what I found is that the kind of heads, even among that 6, they'll develop a pecking order, and at least 1 or 2 will kind of rise to the top among them. But there's a lot less resentment, because once I'm part of the leadership group and I thought I should be, and I was selected to be, I might also realize I'm not the big chief. And it's easier to do within that group than it is if I wasn't even selected to be part of the leadership team. Now I'm resentful, right? And so it's kind of that in-between group to have 1 or 2 kind of step up and be a little bit more of leaders within that role. Assigning game day roles. Like I had a lot of seniors last year. I have a lot of seniors this year. What do I do about game day roles? Well, I let them do it. If they can't handle doing that, then I'll have to step in. If they can't decide who's going to wear the captain's band and speak to the official, I'll do it. But they've already decided. They decided before I even asked them. They came in and said, hey, we want you to know we had a conversation. We know who's going to be the person talking to the officials. And that was because they knew they have started to learn that they have certain skill sets and they need to focus on those and not stress about the ones they don't have. Focus on being good at the ones they do have and grow at the other ones. I wanted to put this about a minute video. These are 2 of my leaders, and they're going to talk a little bit about their perspective on what we implemented.
Hello, my name is Sadie Cunningham.
And I'm Jenny Overbay.
And we are both seniors here at East Lincoln High School.
And so we were both voted on the leadership team both this year and last year. And so one of the things about our leadership team is that it's a team. It's not just one individual. One thing that I liked that I think everyone else enjoys on the team is that we're like a stronger core. We're able to better make decisions because we have more ideas. And also from this year to last year, having that team provided a stronger foundation for us, the rising seniors who were on it last year.
And also it helps not just having two people as captains. We can share responsibilities between each other because being on leadership is a big responsibility, and it also helps other members on our team to feel that their opinions and ideas are being more validated because it's not just being decided between two individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're better able to come and talk with us and discuss things with us because it's a collective rather than just one person making a decision. So, and then how we're hoping to change and improve it from this year to last year. Last year was the first time we had done it, and so this year we're hoping to continue making it more streamlined, I guess, and making it represent the team better as a whole.
And just making sure to continue to communicate to our teammates and make sure that they know that they always have people that they can come talk to if they need anything.
Yeah.
And so that was my players. And then I thought, whoops.
Hello, my name.
Give me 1 second there. I get to the next one. This is the coach for Queen City FC, which is a UPSL men's team that ranges in age from 19 to 32 years old, grown men playing semi-pro soccer. They're actually in the semifinals of their regional championships with a chance to go to nationals. And I mentor him as a coach. And I thought what was interesting is he bought in, built the same kind of leadership team that I did with high school girls. And I wanted you to hear his perspective as well.
Hey everybody, my name is Jacob Nielsen. I am the head coach of Queen City Football Club out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We are a semi-professional soccer team that competes in the United Premier Soccer League. I want to spend a few moments talking about the leadership team that I've created at my club. This leadership team is comprised of 6 individuals who are voted on by the players in preseason. These are guys that everyone respects and admires, and usually when they talk, people listen. The main way that these guys help me as a coach is they're an extension of the coaching staff. When the energy is poor during a training session, these are the first guys that raise the level. It's not just a coach trying to communicate with his players and bringing the energy up. It's an additional 6 players trying to bring the energy up. And it's not just through their communication, it's through their energy, it's through their body language, it's through their work rate. And that has a massive impact on the rest of the team. And when they're not there, you can notice it. Another way that they can help the coaching staff is by bringing player concerns to the staff of players who may not want to speak to a coach. It's also a way to get good feedback from the players in the way training sessions run or certain things about game day schedules or team bonding events. This is quite different from anything else I have experienced as a player in the fact that you have a leadership team of 6 individuals. These guys can bond together and withstand peer pressure and give constructive criticism and feedback to the coaching staff. This also gives these players a sense of responsibility. These guys are part of a team and they have a positive impact on the club, and they are responsible for a small part of the success on the field. If I were to redo this or recreate a leadership team in the future, one of the main things that I would try to do better is to be more intentional with creating meetings with the leadership team to try to stay ahead of the curve when little issues or problems will pop up. Instead of trying to react, I can be proactive with the leadership team to solve these issues. Thank you. Bye.
So,
Hey everybody.
see if I can. So in terms of his experience, he did not meet with his leadership team, but maybe once every 6 weeks. And he massively regretted that lack of constant meeting with them. He did speak to them before trainings occasionally, but when they would speak to him, they constantly asked him to create time to meet. And it's a little harder with adult males who have jobs to try to sort that out. But he, in reflection, sees how much better that could have also improved their season. And they did go on a massive run to win games. They finished 3rd in their league, and obviously they won their quarterfinal match, and now they're in the semifinals. So I just found it very, I guess, interesting that the same kind of setup can be used with some tweaks with a completely different demographic in both gender, age, level of play. And for me, having experienced, I'll end with this, having experienced a lot of different teams, various clubs, various ages, various genders, I think leadership just needs to be educated. We need to spend time and explain what we mean when we say, we want you to be a good leader today. What does that mean? Like, to the player. And if you spend the time educating it and allow the players to drive your decision-making, your stress level as a coach it plummeted. I felt so much better about where we were at all the time because they helped me to be informed as to where they were at. So I'll leave you with that and open up to questions and comments and things that you might need from me. I'm sorry if I went too long, Saxton, but I could probably talk for another 2 hours about this. So I narrowed it down as much as I possibly could.
That was awesome. A lot of great content. I believe you've answered all the current questions we have in the chat. We can stick around and see if any more come through. In the meantime, I want to give a big thank you to everyone, all the coaches and players and everyone who hopped on this call today. It was a lot of great information. I know this can be really helpful to you and your programs this upcoming year. And a big thank you to Jason for being willing to give this presentation today, and we really appreciate it. For everyone asking, yes, we will be able to send a copy of this presentation. If Coach Dragoon is
Yes.
okay with that, perfect. And then we will be sending out an actual recording of this presentation as well. It takes us a little bit to get it all set up to be able to share with you guys, but we will be sending out to all RSVPs. So as long as you've RSVP'd on the landing page, we will be getting the copy of the recording to you.
And my contact info will be at the end of the presentation. Feel free to email me, call me anytime. I'm currently the awards officer for the North Carolina Soccer Coaches Association, so I represent them. You're welcome to call anytime, email me. I'm in a stage of my career where I want to help coaches coach and be better, and I want to improve myself. So you may have ideas that you could really help me with on how to improve this leadership idea. I know it's in its infancy, so for me, I want to improve it. So please feel free.
Awesome. We're just getting a lot of thank yous, in the chat. So awesome. Well, thank you everyone again for today. Oh, wait 1 second. We got a question. Tyler asked, it sounds like you had a solid foundation to start with. Any advice for teams and programs where the coaching staff is new or the team chemistry was not the best?
So yeah, that's a great question. I think actually this might be the perfect platform to launch a new culture, a new expectation. And to help you out, we did start from a good foundation. I've been here for 22 years, but Jacob, in the very last video, he's only 26 years old, and this was his first ever head coaching job, and he's coaching a UPSL men's team, and he has grown men. He's going to have practices 3 times a week and play in a highly competitive league, which they don't get paid to play, but it's close to being paid to play. And so he had to implement this and build a brand new culture, brand new environment, because he was an assistant the year before and he wanted to change the leadership, the environment, the culture. And so I think one of the things you can do is, because you're a new staff, meet with the staff, get an idea of what your idea of leadership is, what are your team goals, and then allow the team to build its leadership team the way that we kind of have. Allow them vote on it, the returning players, build a leadership team, or even wait and include everybody, build a leadership team, and then let them sit down and pick out what direction do they want to go. What are the things that they can commit to as expectation wise, and you can guide them and educate them on what it should look like, and you can build your foundation right there. So I think that helps you to set your culture right from the get-go if you're a new program, especially if you've been losing. Because if you notice, if you go back and look, even though we did set some goals that had to do with winning, a lot of our goals were moving the ball fast up the field, playing together as a team, having team bonding events, spending more time together and building relationships. And I got to tell you, almost 90% of the effort we put in as a leadership team is spending time together and building relationships. It is not trying to win soccer games. Like, we do that when we go to training sessions, but we try to focus all of our effort on building relationships and building camaraderie and making the experience amazing. Because we all know the thing we remember is not the win, but the bus ride home. In high school girls soccer, it's the bus ride home. Like, it's the experiences you have together. And so I think if you focus on that, that would be my advice. I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe we could talk more another time, but feel free to reach out.
Awesome. He said, appreciate that answer and all the info you provided. So that's great. We had another awesome question. It says, how do you balance incorporating athlete choice / voice while not compromising the integrity of structures that keep your vision?
I'm going to scroll and look at that question again, because I heard you, but I'm getting old and I don't store things as well. There we go. Okay. So how do I balance incorporating athlete choice voice while not compromising the integrity of structures? Okay. So in there, you'll notice the kids got to choose the first three things, like what are the qualities, what are the expectations, what are the goals. Then they chose their leadership team. Then their leadership team sits down and evaluates all those things. And then I hand them the staff's goals and expectations. It was self-sacrifice. It was building the environment they wanted to live in, all those kinds of things. And I share them with them. Those are non-negotiable. But those non-negotiables aren't, you're going to show up to practice 5 times a week for 3 hours. Those were qualities and characteristics I wanted them to commit to. The vision for your program still has to be driven by them. When they don't want to accomplish those things, and they're the 6 people that have been voted on by the other 16, by the total 16 players, you have a group of 16 that has a vision that's different from yours. You need to meet with the team and you need to talk about why that vision is happening. Like, why don't they have a vision for something bigger? Do they not believe they're good enough? Do they not want to do the training that's needed to get there? And as you unravel what it is that's driving that, you're going to be able to better answer that question. For example, your vision is conference championship. Their vision is we want to get together, kick around, and we don't want to win anything. We don't care. Why is that? Do you not think you're good enough? No, we know we're good enough. We just don't have any interest in working that hard. And this is the 16 girls you have, and we all feel that way. Okay, that's much harder to address. Right now, you've got to go, well, how do we change that mentality? Like, why is it that you have that mentality? Talk to me about why. And then you've got to engage in a conversation to where you can try to get at the heart at why they don't want to accomplish those things. And if you have to scrap the whole group of 16 and start fresh with new players that want to achieve something greater, that might be the direction you have to go. In college, you can do that. You can do that. In high school, it's much harder to do. You're kind of dealt the cards you're dealt. But I feel like a lot of coaches never ask. They don't want to know what that voice is. They fear the voice is going to tell them, hey, coach, this is too much. We don't want to work this hard. And guess what? If they don't want to, they're not going to, whether you tell them they have to or not. So you have to then change your mentality from we're going to do this to I need to motivate them to. I need to help them see the vision I have and why I want that vision. And I need to build better relationships with my players so they can see what I am and try to emulate that. So I think that's a tough question to answer. I don't know that I answered it. What I will tell you is when it differed from me on vision, I tried to share with them my vision and say, why are we different? Like, tell me how I can convince you that this vision is better. And a lot of times they just needed to hear what my vision was. Like, sometimes we don't do a good job of explaining it. In the leadership meeting, I was like, guys, this is important. We need these Saturday practices. Like, how do I convince you that they're important? Like, here is why. And I laid out all of the reasons why that we needed to do extra Saturday practices before the playoffs. And they sat down and evaluated that and they went, hey, all right, we buy that. We're in. They could have said, you know what, Dragoon, that's great, but coach, we don't want to do, if we lose the game, we lose the game. Now that's going to devastate me. But hey, if that's what the 16 players want, man, I just got to rethink how I approach the next season and convince them that they should want that. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's helping or not helping. I don't know.
She said, yes, you did answer it. Thank you. Shared vision takes building relationships and it's work. Thank you. I think we only have, I'm going to do one quick question, 'cause I think you can answer this pretty quickly. Kevin just asked, do you have an award ceremony for your leadership team?
I do not have an award ceremony for my leadership team. I do an award ceremony for my team, which is probably the most feared thing that I do. I don't know about you, but I hate awards night because no matter how you cut the awards, somebody's unhappy, right? So we spend time in leadership before the awards, and we spend time talking about the fact that, hey, we've all had a great season. We're happy. Here are the things that we think we did really well as a leadership team. Here's the things we didn't do well. We want to improve on next year. And understand that I need their support when we do awards. They have to support me just like they supported me during the season when I made decisions for players to play. That it's coming from the staff. We think it's the best choices. But I will tell you, at our award ceremony, we did something different this past year as well. We went along the same lines as leadership, and we allowed the players to nominate as many players as they wanted to, not for a specific award, but for any award out there. Like, they didn't have to name the award. They just had to say why the person deserved an award. What that allowed us to do was get insight into how they saw their teammates versus how we as a staff saw the team. And once we selected award winners as a staff, we were able to talk about all the great things that the players talked about or felt about their teammates, both award winners and non-award winners. But no, I do not do an award ceremony for my leadership, but I do feed them breakfast about every other week from Chick-fil-A. So they're pretty content with my support of them in terms of reward. So
Awesome. And Matt, I apologize, we're running out of time. We only have about a minute left, but Matt asked, if the goals are not being met, do you reconvene with the leadership team or the entire team to relook at what was decided on by the team?
We start with meeting with the leadership team. When we're not meeting goals, we talk about that in the leadership team. And if they feel like they need to meet with the team to talk about it, they do. And at one point in our season last year, they said, Coach, we need a team meeting. So I said, do you want me there? Or do you not want me there? And they said, we want you there, but it's our meeting. You just sit there. And they ran a meeting in front of me where they discussed what the team goals were and what the team had said on paper they wanted to accomplish and whether the team was really committing to getting to those goals. And when they all had to reflect on not what my goals were for the team, not what my objectives were for the team, not what the staff said we had to do, but what they had written before the season started, months before the season started, they wanted their leadership and themselves to commit to. It's tough to say, I'm not going to commit to that. Because you were the one who said this is what you wanted. So you need to live up to it. And it held them all accountable without me having to hold them accountable. So it was really, really cool.
Awesome. I apologize. We are out of time, but I appreciate everyone's participation and some great questions. I know Coach will be happy to, if you send him an email, I know he'll be happy to help you guys with further questions. And yes, I will be getting that PowerPoint again to everyone. So thank you all for joining. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.